years, Indian motorcycle dealerships had it all figured out. Big price tags, endless loan terms, and fees hidden in plain sight. But now their strategy is backfiring. Inventory is stacking up, buyers are walking away, and the illusion of value is crumbling. Is this the beginning of the end for Indian motorcycles? What's happening? Indian motorcycle has long been synonymous with rugged, iconic American bikes. For decades, they represented freedom, power, and a working-class dream. Riders could count on Indian to deliver reliable, stylish motorcycles without the need for an astronomical budget. In the early 2000s, owning an Indian bike meant paying a fair price for quality engineering, a tradition stretching back to the company's roots. Models like the Scout and the Chief became emblematic of affordable excellence. But somewhere along the line, things changed. As the early 2010s unfolded, Indian motorcycle dealerships started to see an opportunity, not just to sell bikes, but to capitalize on a changing market. Prices began to creep upward, not just by a few dollars, but by hundreds or even thousands over the years. Riders who once walked into a showroom and left with a bike now found themselves second-guessing the cost. What was once affordable suddenly felt just out of reach. Dealerships were clever in how they framed these price hikes. Instead of presenting them as straightforward increases, they disguised them as market adjustments. They blamed global factors, supply chain disruptions, increased production costs, or even global economic shifts. Yet, not all of these justifications held water. In reality, it wasn't just inflation driving up prices. Dealers saw what riders were willing to pay and adjusted their pricing strategies accordingly. One particularly effective tactic was creating a sense of urgency. Dealers framed bikes as limited editions or in short supply, urging customers to buy now before prices rose even further. Terms like market scarcity and exclusive offer became common in sales pitches. What riders didn't realize was that this was a calculated move. Dealerships were banking on fear of missing out to justify inflated costs. The illusion of value became the new normal, and many riders didn't see through the smokescreen. For years, Indian dealerships thrived under this model. Riders came to expect high prices, convinced that this was simply how the market worked. The dealers didn't just manipulate prices, they rewired consumer expectations. They convinced buyers that a base model cruiser costing over $25,000 was a bargain, and that a fully loaded touring bike pushing past $40,000 was justified. In this carefully crafted narrative, high prices were not just accepted, they were normalized. However, this fragile illusion couldn't hold forever. Riders began to talk, comparing prices across different regions and dealerships. They shared stories of walking out when a dealer tacked on thousands in additional fees. Slowly, the realization set in. What was once presented as value was actually exploitation. But it wasn't just the price. The real damage lay in how they trapped buyers financially. The financing trap. Indian motorcycle dealers didn't just sell bikes, they sold debt disguised as dreams. If inflating prices was the bait, long-term financing was the trap. Indian motorcycle dealerships didn't just want to sell bikes, they wanted to secure long-term income. To do that, they introduced financing schemes designed to look helpful, but were actually financial pitfalls. Riders who didn't have $25,000 on hand were offered an alternative. Long-term loans stretched over 5 to 7 years. Dealers presented these loans as making bikes affordable for the average rider. Monthly payments as low as $200 to $300 sounded manageable. Buyers were reassured that spreading the cost made sense, especially with a bike that was supposedly holding its value. What many didn't notice was the fine print. Ballooning interest rates and mandatory insurance policies that doubled the original price over the loan term. Take, for instance, a standard Indian Scout priced at $22,000. A 6-year loan with a 9% interest rate didn't just add a few thousand, it almost doubled the total payout. By the time the last payment was made, the rider would have spent over $40,000 on a bike that had depreciated significantly. Riders found themselves stuck, paying more each month than the bike was now worth. Worse still, these financing plans disproportionately targeted younger buyers. Dealerships knew that younger riders often lacked credit history or financial security, making them prime candidates for long loans. Promises of easy financing and low monthly payments lured them in, but within a few years, many found themselves upside down, owing more than the bike's market value. When the pandemic hit, financial insecurity grew and long-term loans became even more precarious. Dealers continued to push financing as the best option, even as the economic outlook darkened. Those who tried to sell their bikes found that the resale value didn't cover the remaining balance on their loans. But the trap didn't end there. Fees and deceptive practices piled on even after the deal. We've done extensive research into how Indian motorcycle dealers have been handling pricing and financing, and we're here to uncover the truth. If you're finding this insight helpful, make sure to like the video and subscribe to our channel. Riders fight back. Fed up with being taken for a ride, Indian motorcycle buyers are fighting back. As more riders fell victim to these tactics, a resistance began to form. Social media became a powerful tool for exposing deceptive dealership practices. On platforms like Reddit and Facebook, riders shared horror stories and tips on how to avoid being scammed. Some even compiled lists of dealerships known for unethical behavior. Content creators and motorcycle vloggers started producing videos highlighting the pitfalls of long-term loans and hidden fees. Community-led campaigns encouraged boycotting dealerships with a history of exploiting buyers. This collective action started to make waves, forcing some dealerships to reconsider their strategies. More riders became proactive, conducting thorough research before stepping into a showroom. They began demanding itemized breakdowns and walking away from deals that didn't feel right. Independent dealers, who offered more transparent pricing, started to see increased traffic. The power of collective action is forcing dealerships to rethink their tactics. But just as riders start to take control, the dealerships face an even bigger problem. Inventory they can't move. Unsold inventory, the showroom crisis. Indian motorcycles, once a symbol of premium quality and rich heritage, are now facing a harsh reality. Their bikes are no longer flying off the showroom floors. What used to be a rush to buy the latest models has turned into an inventory nightmare. Showrooms that once boasted empty spaces as a badge of success now find themselves overflowing with bikes that just won't move. The sight of brand new Indians collecting dust is not only alarming for dealers, but also a powerful indicator of the brand's declining appeal. Dealers are feeling the heat as they continue to take on inventory that just won't sell. The dealerships operate on a floor plan financing system where they take out loans to stock bikes on their showroom floors. When the bikes don't sell, those loans become financial traps. The interest piles up and dealerships find themselves in deeper debt with each passing month. This problem is particularly evident with Indian models that are priced too high for the current market. What used to be a selling point, exclusivity and premium features, has turned into a burden. In response, dealerships are attempting to spark interest through aggressive promotions and significant price cuts. Yet even with steep discounts, buyers remain hesitant. The financial risk for dealers continues to grow as they hold on to expensive inventory that depreciates every day. The once proud Indian badge no longer holds the same appeal when it comes attached to a hefty price tag and a risk of long-term financial strain. The perception of Indian as a value brand has shifted dramatically. Where riders once saw quality craftsmanship and legendary performance, they now see overpriced bikes that fail to justify their cost. The result? Potential buyers are looking elsewhere, leaving Indian dealers scrambling to make sense of the new reality. The once unquestionable loyalty of Indian enthusiasts is being tested, and the consequences are severe. This inventory crisis highlights more than just unsold bikes. It signals a fundamental problem with Indian's business model. The brand's strategy of maintaining premium pricing while ignoring shifting consumer preferences has backfired. Without a change in approach, the showrooms will continue to be filled not with eager buyers, but with stagnant stock. But the real hit isn't just to dealerships, it's to Indian's brand itself. Reputation damage. Indian's brand takes a hit. Indian motorcycles has long been synonymous with heritage, quality, and a connection to the open road. However, recent events have shaken that image to its core. Riders who once wore the Indian badge with pride are now voicing their frustrations online and in dealerships. Customer complaints about overpriced bikes, unfair financing, and misleading sales tactics are going viral, tarnishing the brand's reputation. Social media has become the new battleground for brand perception, and Indian is losing ground fast. Once loyal customers are now expressing their discontent openly, sharing stories of regret and dissatisfaction. Video reviews criticizing Indian's pricing strategy have amassed thousands of views, sparking heated debates among motorcycle enthusiasts. Forums that once celebrated the brand's legacy are now filled with cautionary tales about deceptive sales practices and overpriced models. Dealerships that were once pillars of the Indian community are now seen as part of the problem. Buyers feel they were sold a dream that turned into a financial nightmare. As complaints pile up, even dealerships with long-standing reputations for fairness are struggling to maintain customer trust. Some have attempted damage control by offering refunds or extended warranties, but it's a band-aid solution to a much deeper problem. Market analysts predict that Indian's recovery will not be quick or easy. The brand's identity crisis is not just about one bad financial year, it's about a fundamental shift in how riders perceive its value. Indian once thrived by appealing to a sense of nostalgia and craftsmanship, but now it seems disconnected from what modern riders actually want: affordability, reliability, and straightforward pricing. Efforts to rebuild trust are met with skepticism. Refund initiatives and incentive programs feel like desperate attempts to salvage relationships that are already strained. Riders are wary of committing to a brand that they feel betrayed them during tough times. Even as dealerships try to showcase customer-friendly policies, the damage to Indian's image is hard to reverse. Rebuilding trust is a steep climb, especially when every negative review or viral complaint sets progress back by months. Indian must confront the reality that its brand is no longer seen as a symbol of freedom, but as a cautionary tale about misplaced loyalty. But Indian's brand damage goes beyond the dealership. It's systemic. Competing brands capitalizing on Indian's fall. While Indian Motorcycles tries to salvage its reputation, other brands are wasting no time capitalizing on the gap left behind. Harley-Davidson, long considered Indian's biggest competitor, is launching revamped models specifically aimed at attracting younger riders. These bikes are stripped of excessive tech, focusing on classic design and affordability, a stark contrast to Indian's more complex and costly offerings. Royal Enfield, known for its rugged simplicity and accessible price points, is rapidly expanding its market presence. The brand has gained traction by offering straightforward, no-frills bikes that cater to both seasoned riders and newcomers alike. As Indian's image falters, Royal Enfield's commitment to delivering value and heritage without breaking the bank is resonating more than ever. Asian motorcycle brands are also making significant inroads. Manufacturers like Honda, Yamaha, and Kawasaki are capitalizing on their reputation for reliability and cost-effectiveness. With the global economy in flux, riders are looking for practical solutions rather than extravagant statements. These brands are positioning themselves as the logical choice for consumers fed up with inflated prices and complex loan agreements. Market analysis suggests that Indian's downfall has opened the door for competitors to claim a larger share of the market. While Indian is busy managing damage control, these rival brands are gaining consumer trust by simply sticking to what works, producing quality bikes at reasonable prices. While others capitalized, riders also became more strategic, turning their frustration into action. The used bike movement. The used bike market had always been there, an alternative for those who couldn't afford new. But as Indian's dealership practices came to light, this once modest market exploded into a full-blown movement. Riders started to see the benefits of buying older models. No inflated prices, no hidden fees, no financing traps. In essence, it was a return to what riding was supposed to be: simple, straightforward, and affordable. Social media became a hub for this growing movement. Riders shared stories of buying used bikes directly from fellow enthusiasts, skipping the dealership entirely. One post about finding a 5-year-old Indian Scout for less than half the price of a new one went viral, inspiring others to follow suit. Videos on YouTube highlighted how used bikes were often better maintained and more reliable than new ones, especially without the dealership's complex technology upgrades. But it wasn't just about cost. Riders began to appreciate the charm of older models. Classic Indian bikes with fewer electronics and more mechanical simplicity became desirable not just for their price, but for their authenticity. Riders felt a deeper connection with bikes that had history, stories, and a sense of individuality, something that shiny new models couldn't replicate. The used bike rebellion wasn't just about nostalgia, it was a practical response to dealership exploitation. Instead of being tied to loans and complicated maintenance routines, riders could buy a used bike outright. Mechanics specializing in older models saw an uptick in business as riders sought ways to keep their vintage machines in peak condition. In a way, the movement became a statement. Riders weren't just rejecting high prices, they were rejecting the commercialization of the riding culture itself. Dealerships took notice. Some even tried to capitalize by offering certified pre-owned bikes at marked up prices, but riders saw through the ruse. Instead, private sales became more common, and online marketplaces saw a surge of listings. Indian's dealerships found themselves stuck with unsold inventory while the used bike market flourished. But it wasn't just about finding better deals. Riders also started pushing back in more organized ways. Grassroots activism. As the frustration grew, so did the desire for change. Grassroots activism became the next logical step for riders who felt exploited. It started small, riders sharing financing tips and warnings about specific dealerships. But soon it grew into something much more significant. Organized movements advocating for fair pricing, better loan terms, and more transparent business practices from Indian motorcycle dealers. Petitions began circulating online, demanding that Indian address the unethical practices at their dealerships. Social media groups started campaigns to hold specific dealers accountable. Riders demanded more honest communication about loan terms and fewer hidden fees. A particularly influential group, Riders Against Dealer Scams, organized an awareness rally, drawing hundreds of motorcyclists to protest in front of a major Indian dealership. The pressure didn't stop there. Some riders took legal action, filing class action lawsuits against dealerships that had sold overpriced, poorly financed bikes. Consumer protection groups got involved, amplifying the message that motorcycle dealerships needed to be more transparent. Indian couldn't ignore the backlash. Executives issued statements acknowledging the riders' concerns, but without concrete changes, the anger continued to grow. As activists pushed harder, some dealerships quietly revised their financing practices, fearing the reputational damage. Even local governments started paying attention. State legislators proposed bills to regulate dealership financing practices, inspired partly by the vocal protests from the riding community. News coverage continued to amplify the message. Riders were done being exploited. With the movement gaining traction, the dealerships had to make a choice: resist change or embrace it. Dealerships respond: adaptation or extinction. The wave of activism hit dealerships hard. For years, they had relied on riders passively accepting high prices and long loans. Now they faced a wave of scrutiny unlike anything they had seen before. Some dealerships tried to fight back, labeling activists as misguided or uninformed, but others recognized that the industry had changed and they needed to adapt. Forward-thinking dealerships began implementing new sales practices. Transparent pricing became a priority, with dealerships openly breaking down costs, financing terms, and potential pitfalls. Some even offered to restructure existing loans for riders who had been hit hardest. Community involvement became another survival strategy. Dealerships hosted open forums where riders could voice their concerns directly to management. In a few cases, dealerships partnered with local riding clubs to restore community trust. These efforts were not universally successful, but they showed a willingness to listen, something riders had been demanding for years. The dealerships that adapted found cautious optimism from their customers. Those that didn't face dwindling sales, increased negative reviews, and in some cases, closure. Indian as a brand faced a significant identity crisis. Was it a rider-centric company or just another corporate entity exploiting passion for profit? The aftermath of the rebellion was clear. Dealerships that put riders first were surviving, even thriving. Those that clung to old practices were being left behind. Indian Motorcycle itself started to rethink its approach, signaling potential changes to come. The battle wasn't just about bikes, it was about the very soul of riding. As riders pushed for fairness, the message was clear. The days of dealership manipulation were numbered. Community-led change. In the wake of Indian Motorcycle's dealership crisis, something unexpected is happening. Instead of giving up on the brand, passionate riders are taking matters into their own hands. The collapse of the traditional dealership model has sparked a resurgence of community-driven initiatives aimed at preserving the spirit of Indian motorcycles. these grassroots movements are proving that the love for the brand is rooted not in flashy marketing or inflated prices, but in the raw passion of riders themselves. Across the country, rider-led events are popping up, celebrating the heritage and simplicity of Indian motorcycles. These gatherings often focus on vintage and affordable models, showcasing bikes that represent the true essence of riding. It's not just about showing off new machines, it's about appreciating the classics that made Indian a legendary name. These grassroots events are reviving a sense of community, reminding everyone that motorcycling is about the thrill of the ride, not the price tag. Alongside these events, community-led garages are becoming more popular than ever. Riders are pooling resources to create shared spaces where they can maintain and customize their bikes. These garages are more than just workshops. They are hubs of learning and collaboration. Experienced riders teach newcomers the basics of maintenance, while more seasoned mechanics share customization tips. The goal is simple: keep the bikes running without relying on expensive dealership services. This hands-on approach reinforces the idea that Indian motorcycles are meant to be ridden, not polished and parked. Social media has also become a powerful tool in this movement. Online campaigns are highlighting independent dealerships that prioritize transparency and fair pricing. Riders are rallying around those businesses that refuse to play the corporate game, choosing to support shops that focus on building long-term relationships rather than quick sales. Content creators are playing a significant role by promoting these initiatives, making videos that expose deceptive practices while celebrating rider-centric businesses. Additionally, a new wave of advocacy is emerging, calling for more accountability in financing and sales practices. Riders are pushing for regulations that protect consumers from predatory loans and hidden fees. Community forums are filled with discussions about fair pricing, better loan terms, and the importance of honesty in dealership transactions. This collective effort is forcing some dealerships to rethink their approach as they realize that staying afloat means, as riders take ownership of the culture, they find freedom not just on the road, but in how they define the experience. But while communities flourish, Indian as a brand faces a critical choice: evolve or collapse. Indian's reckoning. Will the brand adapt? As the riding community reclaims its culture, Indian motorcycle finds itself at a crossroads. The backlash from riders has been fierce, and the brand's reputation has taken a hit. However, rather than retreating, Indian's leadership is beginning to realize that adaptation is not just necessary, it's their only chance to preserve the brand's legacy. One of the first moves Indian is making is revamping their model lineup. They've started to introduce more affordable and minimalist bikes aimed specifically at younger riders. These new models are stripped of unnecessary tech, offering a simpler, more authentic riding experience. Indian's decision to focus on practicality rather than luxury shows a clear understanding that modern riders crave straightforward, rugged machines. This strategic shift acknowledges that the younger generation values bikes that are not just stylish, but also dependable and easy to maintain. Reducing tech complexity is another critical part of Indian's plan. Riders have voiced their frustration with overly complicated dashboards and software-driven controls. To address this, Indian is designing new models that bring back the simplicity of classic riding. Less focus on high-tech features and more emphasis on the pure joy of riding, a move that could rekindle the spirit that made Indian motorcycles iconic in the first place. In addition to rethinking their bikes, Indian is also addressing the financing issues that have caused so much controversy. Dealers are being encouraged to offer better loan terms and provide full transparency during the sales process. This means no more hidden fees or surprise charges. By implementing clear upfront pricing, Indian hopes to rebuild the trust that was eroded by aggressive sales tactics. To strengthen the brand's reputation even further, Indian is building partnerships with independent garages. These collaborations allow riders to maintain their bikes without being tied to expensive dealership service departments. By supporting community garages, Indian shows it understands that maintaining a bike should not feel like an ordeal. Some dealerships are also adopting community-centric practices to rebuild trust. Instead of focusing solely on sales, these shops are hosting events, organizing group rides, and offering loyalty programs to reward longtime customers. The goal is not just to sell bikes, but to create a sense of belonging and mutual respect. If Indian listens to its riders, it might just preserve its legacy. If not, it risks becoming a relic of the past. But Indian's battle is more than just business. It's about redefining what riding means in the modern world. Lessons learned. The motorcycle industry takes notes. The turmoil surrounding Indian motorcycles has not gone unnoticed by the rest of the industry. Brands like Harley-Davidson and Royal Enfield are already taking notes, keen to avoid the same pitfalls. One major lesson is the importance of community engagement. Instead of focusing solely on profit margins, companies are starting to invest in rider-centric initiatives that build lasting relationships. Transparent pricing has become a focal point as consumer expectations shift. Riders no longer accept vague pricing strategies or inflated costs. Brands are moving toward clear, upfront pricing that respects the customer's right to know what they're paying for. This transparency builds trust and keeps consumers coming back. Manufacturers are also rethinking the types of bikes they produce. The demand for simple, rugged, and affordable motorcycles is pushing companies to scale back on unnecessary features. This shift is not just practical. It is a response to the market's call for more dependable and straightforward machines. The market is realizing that heritage and community are stronger than hype and inflated prices. Indian struggle shows that the future of riding is in the hands of the community, not corporations. But as brands adapt, the riding culture itself is also transforming in surprising ways. The new riding culture. As the motorcycle industry grapples with change, riders are redefining the culture from the ground up. The future belongs not to corporations, but to the passionate individuals who keep the spirit of riding alive. Direct sales models are gaining traction as more consumers opt for online purchases over dealer markups. Riders want honesty, simplicity, and control over their buying experience. Independent shops are thriving too, providing reliable maintenance without the dealership hassle. Online communities are playing an integral role in shaping this new culture. Riders are sharing tips on buying used, performing maintenance, and finding deals, fostering a culture rooted in self-reliance and mutual support. The culture of riding is being rebuilt not by brands, but by the passion of everyday riders. The motorcycle community has proven one thing: freedom on the road is about more than just owning a bike. It's about preserving the spirit of riding itself. That's the full breakdown on the Indian motorcycle dealership crisis. What do you think? Can Indian bounce back, or is the damage too deep? Let us know in the comments. And if you found this video informative, don't forget to subscribe, like, and hit the notification bell so you never miss an update.